Mr. Amitav Akhwari, Senior VP HR, Jindal Stainless Limited, to please come up to share his views with us. Thank you.
Very good afternoon to all of you. The post-lunch sessions has its own advantages and disadvantages, but I'll still try to ensure that little bit of participation happens. My name is Amitav Akhwari. I look after the HR function of Jindal Stainless Limited. Before I actually start the presentation, I'd like to just briefly tell you about the industry from where I am coming. I represent a company which manufactures stainless steel in the country, and if I have to put it this way, we are the 55% market share in the country, which means if you are making a lakh ton of stainless steel in the country, 55% is being sold by Jindal Stainless, and the next to the competition which we have in the country is the imports, which means that around 30-35% of the stainless which you see in our country is imported. Which leads to the next question is that we are the market leaders in stainless steel, which makes us even more important that we should also promote stainless in the country, in the infrastructure, in the country's usage. Of course, this topic of industry-academia bridge, there is a gap, I must admit. I've spent 25 years plus in the industry, and I've seen people chasing the fuse only, and the kind of industry, the kind of institutions which have opened in the past 20 years have actually not contributed the way it should have happened. Still, as industry, as Jindal, we also prefer going to some set of institutions. Of course, NITs and all those institutes are there, but nothing to be against any of the institutes which are functioning in the country. But still, the preference goes to these sets of educational institutes because we have actually seen merit in the students who actually come. We also agree that if a student joins the industry, it takes him approximately 2 to 3 years to get adjusted to the industrial culture. I mean, all of us, we are working in the industry. We were also passed out of some colleges, some institutes here and there. But of course, industry also embraces the students and gives them at least 24 to 36 months to adjust and then to grow with the organization. So whatever we are mentioning like speed or the street smartness and all those things, we wait for the students to develop. But to tell you, yes, the premier institutes, only because I see that the entry levels are very rigid or the entry levels are very better rated than the other institutions. The students, the children, our children who are actually going to take part in the industry growth in the next 20 years, they actually get this kind of a kick start if they study from these institutes. A line on this picture also itself, there is a gap between the two, and I would like to start with some statistics. This is how I'll be running this slide. It's approximately 17 slides, of which maybe 2 to 3 are the broad topics, and the rest are the subject. It's the introduction, which is what is the current scenario, what is the demand supply. Though we hear the numbers, though we hear the demand supply gap, what are the numbers? I would be repeating some of the figures of Mr. Reddy and others, but nonetheless, it's worth repeating again. Why there is a reason between the gap? We need to bridge this gap, definitely. As industry representative, I would still request all of you to come forward. We'll also like to come forward and bridge this gap. How? And we have to do it like this. There are some expectations. What are the actions required by the industry, by the student itself also? We also claim the students also a part of this mismatch which is happening today in the country. And last is on the conclusion. First is on some of the numbers. India is one of the largest education. Numbers have already been shared. 25.9 million students enrolled in more than 45,000 degree and diploma institutions in the country. I have taken into all the BTECs and the diplomas and the MBAs also for the purpose of discussion. More than 700 universities and 35,000 colleges, out of which 150 universities, and so on. The numbers are big, very big numbers these are. More than 85% of the students are enrolled in bachelor's degree program, and about 1/6 in the engineering technology degree program. Engineering colleges in the country have been growing at 20% rate. That's the rate of increase of the institutions. In fact, we are just behind China. China is producing approximately 6 lakhs of engineering graduates. We are touching that number very closely, up to maybe 5 lakhs of that number. But if these are the facts, so many institutions and so many colleges are there, 5 lakh engineers and MBAs being churned out every year. But what is the reality? Again, a repetition, but a very forceful statement by one of the ex-president of India, in which he says it's a worrying sign that even though the third largest number of graduates in the world every year is produced in India, only 15% of our boys and girls passing out of college have skills required to become employable. So this is something between education and then the employability part of it. This brings in concern that students are getting degrees but not getting employment and not skills. And this is definitely a very genuine concern, stated from the first person of the country. 83% engineering graduates, sir had mentioned 75, I will still add to that figure and put it to 83%. 17.5% of engineering graduates in the year 11 were employable. Even graduates of Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 engineering colleges in India were not industry ready even after international training. So the figures, these are the kind of intake which has been happening, and one small glimpse of the kind of placement which actually happened. It's IIT Bombay, 1,060 boys graduated, out of which 1,005 have got jobs. In fact, I'm sure all of the remaining 55 would have also got it, or would have thought not to go for an employment. But if you look at MIT, 1,000 students passing out, only 365, only 30% of the students getting employment. This is a published figure, so I thought I should share it with you, though the name of the institute is there, but no bad feelings against the institute. Some reasons behind it we have been discussing all in all. I would like to point out few from the industry point of view also. Education system continues to be a kind of a ratta technology. Like we say that you just mug up, vomit in the morning, pass out, get out of the college and look for an employment whichever way you get a job. It is not that people are taking the subject inside themselves. The subject is not sinking in them. High quality research and education institutions, the reputation, a loosened criteria for admission in professional colleges, yes, it is there. The criteria are very simple. These are my capitation fee, or this is the amount of money, or you do a campus interview in our institute, we'll employ your son, or we'll take admission of his son, or whatever you say. So even institutes are also giving very these kind of lucrative offers. Lack of seriousness in faculty. I would also like to add to this that yes, the kind of faculty which we actually see in the Tier 2, Tier 3 colleges are actually not up to the mark. Dr. Reddy had also mentioned that even the PhDs are not good enough to take sessions of the BTechs at times. Poor English language and communication. Of course, a recent UPSC row which has happened, we said that English should be there or not, but I still feel that if you have to work in an industry, knowledge of English is required, which is a mandatory part as far as the industry is concerned. Or no training on functional skills, of course we are to be blamed, we should also come forward and give those functional trainings. Commercialization of education, enough has been said on this. Many colleges have been opened because it belongs to a particular name, and that name should remain forever, so open an institute. But again, these are some of the financial figures I would like to say, how the education industry is raking the mullah, and how are they taking out the money from the economy. It is expected that overall education sector market will increase to maybe 100 billion, from maybe 56 billion, approximately doubling that number would be. So money is there in the air. The institutions have to just open up and get this money into them. Expected revenue of private enterprise in education is approximately 45 billion in 2015. But the scenario is still now where it is catching up. If you see this slide, many of the institutions have actually closed down because of lack of students. Because the institutes at times are also rated the kind of placement they offer. And batches after batches have passed out from the institute and the placements have not happened. 2011, since 2002, 25 business schools and over 50 engineering colleges across India have closed down. Many more colleges have trimmed programs, branches. Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh is credited with having the highest number of engineering colleges in the country. Out of 339, out of 677, 339 are on the verge of closure. Another reality, it's hitting the industry also, the educational industry. Between 2011 and 13, AICTE received 231 applications for management college wanting to shut down. I went to Bhopal, there were maybe 70 plus engineering colleges. And between the residential colonies, we saw a big two-story building running as an institute, engineering colleges. Pathetic. In 2013, 94 management colleges have sought consent to shut down. Another example, another sad side of the story. Of course, everybody agrees, I personally also agree that there is a need to bridge this gap. There is a need to fulfill the industry expectation, improve the employability, enhance the functional skills, show possibility of customized curriculum, to bring the industry academic closer. Of course, this is one of the sessions. This is the first session I've been addressing in the last maybe 7-8 years from where I started speaking on. I've been addressing an academia session where I've been able to meet or interact with some of the professors from the institute. I've always met you all in the institutes only, and not at places like this, to discuss about the current need of industry in terms of competent manpower. These are some of the expectations which I just penned down myself, which says that from industry point of view, attitude, skill, knowledge, exposure to real workplace, overall character development, industry institute interface, and course content also. That is where the course content actually also makes a difference. Even if the other things can be developed in a student, the course content is important. The delivery is also important. How fast, how good they actually learn the subject. In fact, we actually judge the students by the questions they ask actually. It is supposed to give them a problem. How they are able to comprehend that particular problem is what we judge them at. And are they able to understand the problem, or is it that they are asking basic questions? From the academia point of view, yes, industry participation, we do have started. Jindal has participated, has signed, and will be signing. In fact, by 15th of August, I will be signing 2 MOUs with 2 of the premier institutes. We have 2 plants. One in Hisar, which is 115 kilometers from here. The second plant is in Jajpur, which is 100 kilometers from Bhubaneswar. So we have actually identified 2 institutes, one in northern region, one in the eastern region, and we are tying up with them. And it is first 2 are like student internship and the placement, but the third and the fourth is like, even we want our engineers, the DGMs or the general managers or the designations which are there, to actually go and take sessions in these institutes. And professors should also come into our company, interact with our R&D cell and all. Clearly conveyed expected vocational training, practical experience to students, and platform for research and development. As industry, we have just started with 2 institutes. We would like to add more and more number of institutes to these. But of course, everybody has to play that role. The government, the industry, the students, the institutes, everybody has their own pie, and everybody has to move in a little bit from their side also. It is always easier to say that industry is not participating. Have we as institution participating with them or not? Is also we have to see another 4 slides on these 4 subjects. From the institute side, yes, selection criteria of candidates, selection of students with potential for corporate employability. I would still suggest that why don't we have at least 50% of the engineering college follow the same selection procedure which NITs are following. Why can't we have AIEEE, and maybe we can call it some other name, NIEEE or whatever name we want to give. We have another set of like ZAT or MAT, whichever is there, a common entrance test for maybe 50% of the engineering colleges coming together and participating in one selection process. Like for 30 NITs, AIEEE, IITs, they have a separate one. Why not for the remaining? And those institutes who want to participate through this common entrance test, not of the IITs and NITs, they also have to follow their part of the responsibility of faculty, of the research facility which they have, and then they should get part into all those things. Aptitude test, selection criteria, shift from input-centric to learner-centric, definitely this is important. We have to ensure whether the student has actually understood the subject or he is just writing exams of 3 hours and passing and getting 70%, and we assume that he has learned everything. He would have done. And nowadays students are street smart also, and they know how to beat the system. So they would like to beat the system and pass the exams also. Development of faculty, the timely assessment and training, this also is very important. I would also recommend, like we have IAS and IPS category, why don't we have in UPSC a kind of a senior education professionals moving in, serious people who would like to improve the universities and the colleges. Maybe like an IAS officer, there could be an ITS, Indian Training Officer, whatever you can call him, ITO or ITS, and he then checks and keeps the balances with the universities. Development of faculty, great importance and value of closer interaction with industry. So these are some of the things which institutions also have. Maybe the institutions also have a criteria that how many MOUs they have signed with the companies. How many companies have they signed MOUs with? So these are also some of the questions. By students, very easy to blame these students, but we should leave them what they want to do. But as parents, we also at times tell them that no, it is better to do a BTech rather than a BA. Even if he doesn't want to do BTech, we tell him that better do BTech, not BA, because both means graduation and you do MBA. So why don't you do BTech? Without realizing that whether he wants to study in that or not. Change concept, only degree can bring a job, that's wrong. This is something in today's time, at least in the last 5 to 7 years, so many of service sectors have opened up where students are getting jobs. Students have themselves volunteered for NGO jobs also, where they know that they will get less salaries. But they want to do something what they like to do. Choose the right career path with natural talent. There are assessments. Now HR has also become a little bit scientific. They can assess your people or the children and they can tell what kind of a growth they are fit for. Self-driven and not forced by parents to guardian. At least I would put at least 30% in this criteria that many of the students, maybe if they are not sure what they want to do, so the parents take a decision that yes, you better do this kind of a course. Work on soft skill development is also important, taking responsibility, being smart enough to face the world and all. By the industry, yes, convey properly what are the expectations for engineering and management graduates. Adoption of selected institute by industry, so that I just mentioned that we are tied up with 2 institutes, we are already in the advanced discussion. Create avenue for a close academia and industry interaction through all the phases of technology development. And to tell you if this country has to have more and more of usage of stainless steel, as industry will not be able to tell what further application stainless will have. But as a professor, as an R&D lab, people can come up and tell. Now even the overhead tanks, the overhead tank which was earlier of maybe cement and brick got replaced by the plastic syntax tanks and all. We have now brought in a product which is a stainless steel overhead tank, which is a vacuum based 2-layered overhead tank. Of course it would be a little costly, but that is one usage. Another usage which has also been improved through stainless steel is like the toilets and the trains. A decision has been taken that will not clear the night soil on the platform tracks, so we'll clear it somewhere on the track. So the question was that you have to store it for at least an hour or so that you can open the tanks on the track later on. And that is where stainless steel is also trying to bring in their bit, that this will at least help the kind of, and this is all because of the R&D and the interaction with the academia and all this thing that it has come up, and we also want to bring more and more change. As an industry will bring in the product, but as being the market leader, we also have to promote stainless steel. Academic intervention in solving specific industry problems, that's what I just mentioned. The famous, if you go from here to Chandigarh on the right hand side or the left hand side, you see many of the rice mills using stainless steel containers because they found it better in terms of storage and airtight and all those things. That's where the usage of stainless steel actually increased. Industry participation in technology development involving some exploratory work. Stainless steel today has actually also entered, our company has also actually entered into the atomic research sectors, and we are also supplying stainless steel to such usage also. And of course, all figures points to government, so maybe some from my side also. By 2020, India will need 800 more universities than 35,000. But Do we need to have all this, or should we use the capacity which we already have? So scaling up the capacity in existing institutions rather than adding new institutes, bringing more stringent criteria for students, for faculty. Improve technology for education delivery. Yes, it's also important. Input on designing placement processes. So these are some of the government criteria are there. I mean, you cannot take students till you have not placed 80% of the students, period. Or 90% of the boys or children have not been placed, there will be no further admission in this college. So maybe they'll start working backwards, and if they have to place 80% people, they will work backwards and try to finish in a better way. And the last slide, involvement of industry across the value chain and not limited to placement process with employability. So I as an industry representative, I own this. They have to also get a step forward to the institution. Curriculum balance in business knowledge and skills with leadership and soft skill development. This is also required. Kind of a business or maybe knowledge skill. In fact, when we went to the HBTA Kanpur, when we had gone there for campus interview, 50% of the students could qualify even the group discussion. They were not able to speak. They were not able to converse properly or to put forward their thought. Of course, they were good in subject because we had shortlisted them from the criteria of the mark sheet. That was the first criteria. But when we actually interacted with them, around 40 to 50% even could complete the group discussion. So then we also gave a feedback there that why don't you spend some time, at least one semester, at least invest 20 hours or 25 hours of developing the student also, so that they can answer. Even if they are poor in English, accept it. But they should be told how to participate and talk and all those things. So that was very important. This is one of my live experiences, happened at least 4 years back. We actually ended up taking 7 of them. So it was not that we did not select any of them. We did select 7 or 8 of them. And industry exposure through live projects, internship, case studies on real business. So these are some of my thoughts that I thought that I should share with you. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak in front of you. Thank you so much.